The screen erupts with chaos, Athens in turmoil. Protesters hurling stones at riot police as tear gas clouds the air. The sound of sirens piercing through the night. Cut to frantic crowds queuing at empty ATM as their faces etched with fear and disbelief while inside closed doors in Brussels, EU leaders argue in tense midnight meetings, their voices rising as the fate of Europe hangs in the balance. The narration begins with a sharp, urgent tone, asterisk in 2010. The world watched as a small Mediterranean nation threatened to unravel the entire Eurozone. Greece, cradle of democracy and culture, now stood at the epicenter of a financial earthquake. How did a country of just 11 million people nearly bring the world as second largest economy to its knees? Asterisk, the camera lingers on the contrast ancient ruins bathed in golden light, symbols of Greece's proud past, juxtaposed against burning streets and shattered glass, symbols of its fragile present. The hook drives home the central question, pulling viewers into the drama. Was this collapse the fault of Greece alone, reckless in its spending and deceit? Or was it the inevitable consequence of a flawed European project built on fragile foundations? The tension builds, leaving the audience gripped, compelled to stay and uncover how one nation's crisis became a continent's nightmare. The story begins with the dream of a united Europe, a continent scarred by centuries of war now determined to build peace and prosperity through a single currency, the euro. Launched at the dawn of the new millennium, the Eurozone was more than just an economic project. It was a symbol of stability, solidarity, and a shared destiny. Nations from the Mediterranean to the Baltic embraced this vision, believing that by tying their economies together, they could stand stronger against global shocks and rival powers. For Greece, entry into the Eurozone in 2001 was a moment of triumph, a chance to leave behind decades of instability and claim its place at the heart of modern Europe. The promise was dazzling: cheap credit, rising wages, and the prestige of belonging to an elite club of nations. But beneath the surface, cracks were already forming: hidden deficits, unchecked spending, and a fragile economic foundation that would soon be exposed. This video will trace Greece's journey from the euphoria of economic boom to the despair of near collapse, showing how one nation's crisis sent shockwaves across the continent, threatening the very survival of the euro itself. Along the way, we will uncover the human drama behind the headlines: families losing homes, pensions slashed, protests erupting in the streets, and the lessons for global finance about trust, transparency, and the dangers of ignoring warning signs. The tone is urgent and dramatic but balanced, inviting viewers to see not just the numbers but the people whose lives were caught in the storm, and to reflect on how fragile even the grandest economic visions can be when built on shaky ground. In 2001, Greece entered the Eurozone, adopting the euro and stepping into what seemed like a new era of prosperity. For ordinary citizens, it felt like a golden age. Cheap credit flowed freely, wages rose, and government spending created a sense of abundance. Families bought new homes, vacations became more accessible, and the pride of belonging to Europe's elite club was palpable. Yet beneath this glittering surface, hidden problems were quietly growing. Deficits were masked through creative accounting, debt levels climbed steadily, and tax evasion remained rampant, eroding the state's ability to sustain its promises. The cracks were invisible to most, but they were there, waiting for the right moment to split wide open. That moment came with the 2008 global financial crisis, which exposed Greece's vulnerabilities in brutal fashion. Suddenly, the illusion of stability shattered. Greece admitted its deficit was far higher than previously reported, destroying trust among investors and European partners. Panic spread through financial markets, borrowing costs skyrocketed, and banks trembled under the weight of uncertainty. For ordinary Greeks, the crisis was not abstract. It was lived in daily struggles. Families lined up at ATMs only to find limits on withdrawals. Pensions were slashed, unemployment soared, and the sense of security that had defined the euro years evaporated overnight. As the crisis deepened, the Eurozone itself teetered on the brink. The EU and IMF rushed in with massive bailout packages, but these came with harsh austerity measures, tax hikes, wage cuts, and sweeping reforms that plunged millions into poverty. Political turmoil erupted across Greece, Protests filled the streets, strikes paralyzed the nation, and governments collapsed under the pressure of impossible choices. Meanwhile, fear of contagion spread across Europe. Markets worried that Spain, Italy, and Portugal could follow Greece's path, threatening the collapse of the entire Euro project. Behind closed doors, EU leaders held tense midnight summits, knowing that the fate of Europe hung in the balance. In the end, Greece remained within the Eurozone, but survival came at immense social cost. Poverty deepened, young Greeks emigrated in search of opportunity, and distrust in institutions grew stronger than ever. The scars of the crisis lingered, a reminder that the dream of unity and prosperity could be undone by hidden weaknesses, and that the choices of one nation could shake the foundations of an entire continent. Greece's crisis was more than numbers on a balance sheet. It was a test of solidarity, trust, and the limits of integration. What began as a debt problem quickly became a question of whether nations bound together by a single currency could truly share both prosperity and pain. The Eurozone was forced to confront its fragility as political will and fiscal discipline diverged, revealing how easily the dream of unity could fracture under pressure. For ordinary Greeks, the crisis was lived in the streets, burning barricades, shuttered shops, and families struggling to survive austerity. Yet today, Athens stands calmer, its skyline a symbol of survival, scars, and resilience. The story of Greece reminds us that economic unions, no matter how ambitious, are only as strong as the trust and cooperation that sustain them. It is a universal lesson that in a globalized world, the fate of one nation can ripple outward, shaking entire systems and reminding us how interconnected our economies truly are. As the camera fades from the chaos of 2010 to the quieter resilience of modern Greece, viewers are left with a call to reflect. Crises are never contained, and the choices made in one corner of the world can shape the destiny of us all.